Asato ma sadgamaya tamaso ma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste to everyone and welcome to the 18th and last session of Atmabodha. Because we just have 4 more verses which we will be covering today, and we will end Atmabodha today. So I am happy to see the numbers attending the class and the interest, the questions. Thank you for giving me also this beautiful experience, because we went through a text which is very elevating and which speaks of the highest knowledge. So that has a purificatory effect on all of us. So today we are going to discuss the final essence of Atmabodha, encapsulated very beautifully in the last few verses. Essentially, let us understand, Vedanta means to experience I am consciousness. To catch this in experience as deeply as possible, because this is the fact about your experience. Because you are consciousness, there is experience within that consciousness. Vedanta is not about I have consciousness or consciousness is part of my personality. There's no such thing. It is directly arriving at the point that I am consciousness. If you catch this much, you have entered the realm of Advaita Vedanta. To know that I means consciousness, not that I possess it, not that I have to acquire it through sadhana. Then why sadhana? Because this knowledge is not firm in our experience at present. That is why sadhana. Not because the knowledge does not exist. Not because reality does not exist and I have to bring it in somehow. No, it is ever there. My mind has not opened up to it. That is why sadhana. So I am Brahman is the final truth of Vedanta. And not that I am in Brahman or I have Brahman in me, like the Panchakosha model will give you these kind of ideas. While working with my IIT students, I understood that one can get this strange view while studying Vedanta in the third person perspective, that there is a body, then there's a mind, then there's an intellect within that, and then somewhere deep within there is this consciousness, like a box within a box within a box, something like that. It's not like that at all. In your consciousness, there is this body-mind-intellect complex. Apart from your consciousness, you can never know what is or what is not. So consciousness is the primary datum of human experience. And I am consciousness, I am Brahman. To realize this is Vedanta. It is already realized. See what happens when one actually catches this in first person experiences, you realize that it was always so. Not that you acquire some fresh new knowledge. You are always consciousness, alone. You confuse yourself to be the body-mind complex because of non-investigation, because of not inquiring deeply into the heart of things. So Vedanta is just telling us the basic fact of existence. It is consciousness. Now, that is why the word used in the 65th verse is developing the eye of wisdom. See, they don't use expressions like bringing in wisdom, cultivating wisdom. You open your eyes to the reality, that is all that happens. Reality is ever as it is. If you see the perception of these great mystics of the great spiritual traditions of the world, you will see this is what happened with them. They just opened their eyes to reality. Opening eyes is what is called knowledge. Now Diwali is coming, you will be lighting lamps. It is symbolic of gaining this knowledge. Opening eyes means arriving at the fact of this knowledge. So this is the point which Shankaracharya is going to tell us now. Look at verse number 65. Sarvagam Sachidatmanam Jnana Chakshur Nirikshate Ajnana Chakshur Neksheta Bhasvantam Bhanumandhavat. Though Atman is reality and consciousness and ever present everywhere, yet it is perceived by the eye of wisdom alone. But one whose vision is obscured by ignorance does not see the radiant Atman, as the blind do not see the resplendent sun. So sun is ever shining, that's the point. But if you open your eyes, you will see it. If you are blind to it, you will not see it, although it is ever shining. The clouds are compared to ignorance. What is the nature of this ignorance? We have discussed this exhaustively in the course of these lectures. It is of the nature of adhyas, superimposing unreality upon reality, assuming ourselves to be merely body and mind. Although our own first-person experience always tells us that awareness is the fundamental fact of our existence. In awareness, I think, and I posit things, and I perceive. It's all happening in my awareness. So, I am Brahman. It should not be difficult now for us to understand. Why is it that Vedanta is constantly asking us to think thus? Because this is the fact of life. Life means that which is an expression in consciousness, a blooming forth, a manifestation in consciousness. So the two are not different. That's why Thakur used to say, Brahman and Shakti abhed. So many times you will find this in the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Brahman and Shakti are not different, he would say. What does this mean? It means all manifestation is rooted in consciousness. It is possible only through consciousness. It is functioning in consciousness. And that is why the two are not different. So these verses are giving us this understanding that in Vedanta, that is why you see many times Vedanta does not even speak too much of the method. It will just keep on talking of the direct perception of Brahman. You go to these Prakarana Granthas, or even the Upanishads for that matter, you will see the constant reiteration of the truth of Brahman and the unity of all existence. This is being highlighted in various ways. Why? Because that is what the Rishi is seeing. That is the perception. And yet, prakriyas, that is methods to reach there, also were developed. These prakriyas we already discussed in the course of these talks. Like, for example, Drik Drishya Vivek. This is a method to intuit Brahman, to separate the subject from the object. Then we discussed Avasthatraya Vichara, which means the three states of mind, or the three states of our everyday experience, Jagrat, Swapna, Sushupti, how they point to the fact of the Atman, the source of happiness. Then we discussed the Panchakosha model a few times. That is also trying to show us that the actual core of your personality structure is consciousness, lies in consciousness. Then we discussed some pointers towards the knowledge of Brahman, how in our everyday experience this knowledge is ever present. We turn our blind eye towards it. We are insensitive to it. The very fact that now you're looking at your screen and hearing these words, it is only possible because you are a conscious being. Because consciousness lies in your system in such a manner, it enables that system to perceive. If you were unconscious, would all of this mean anything to you? So consciousness is at the heart of experience. So there are pointers in our everyday experience, clues in our everyday experience. If we would only look, see, if you search for reality, you will find it. If the search is not true, if it is somebody's search, and I borrowed it, then I will not find reality. You can't borrow reality from somebody's mind. That is why you see too much of teaching also is not required. You must discover it for yourself because it is ever present. Too much of teaching actually dulls the mind. It is a discovery by oneself because it is the basic fact of existence. Then you have this, what is called Mahavakya Vivek, which means the 4 Mahavakyas, which we discussed once, understanding the Tatparya, the actual implied meanings of these 4 Mahavakyas and how it takes you to the knowledge of Brahman. This is also a method which Vedanta employs to arrive at the knowledge of Brahman. Then various paradoxes are used. Mahato Mahiyan. Like, for example, he is smaller than the smallest. He is bigger than the biggest. All these kinds of expressions are used in order to show the infinitude and vastness of Brahman. So you see, these are all prakriyas, you can say, methods to help our mind understand the nature of Brahman. Then, of course, there are stories. We discussed a whole lot of stories in the course of these talks, which take us again into a deep understanding of the implied substance, what they are pointing towards the stories. They are pointing towards the fact of Brahman. Then we pass through a number of incidents from the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. Isn't it? This is a method I always use, so as to help us understand that in our own times, people have realized this and expressed it in this manner. Sri Ramakrishna's life is a living commentary on the purpose, the actual essence of the Upanishads. It is a demonstration of those truths. So, it is possible to arrive at this knowledge if we only want it like that. If we ask for it, knock and the door shall be opened, as it is said. But then you will realize you are knocking from within. You are knocking from within the door. But knock first, ask for it, and it will come to you. So Vedanta, let us remember, it is a moksha shastra. It is not meant for a little peace of mind or stress management, mental health, how to overcome COVID depression. It's not just meant for all this. It is meant for ultimate liberation, moksha. It is a moksha shastra in Sanskrit. That's what we call the Upanishads, the Vedanta. It is meant to liberate your mind completely, to awaken you to higher knowledge, the knowledge of the Supreme. And all these are the byproducts. The ability to handle your mind, your moods, your stress. These are all byproducts of this search. But they are not the goal, they are not the aim. So a very healthy mind will naturally just connect with the highest truths of life. Last class, we also discussed the healthy mind, which means a mind which is full of positivity, which has no complaints against anybody, which doesn't point out fingers at anybody. A sickly mind is always pointing fingers. Have you noticed this? Because it can't solve its own problems. A healthy mind takes everything into its stride. A positive mind has great energy. A positive mind is very clear. Clarity will be there. So this type of mind is helpful in order to make these prakriyas work. These methods which Vedanta gives us, if they have to work for us, the mind should be like this. Clear, pure, transparent, one-pointed, goal-oriented, and no negativity. So the thought process, once you bring it to a certain level of refinement, Vedanta will work like magic for you. It's like striking a matchstick, immediately there's brightness. So that's why I always told you that these Mahavakyas, these pointers are like that matchstick, which Thakur used to say. If it is perfectly dry, it will immediately strike fire. isn't it? Sri Ramakrishna used to give this example. So the mind of the yogi is like that. There are no desires in that mind. No strong likes and dislikes, negativities, compulsions. These are absent. So it just catches fire. It just sparks off knowledge, you can say. So this type of mind, if we don't have it, you must cultivate it through sadhana. See, every mind is meant for this. We have invested it in a whole lot of worldly things. And after some time we get bored and tired and frustrated, and then we are asking for spiritual food. But the reach of your mind is of this type. Every human mind, you see, the human being is a result of eons of evolution, isn't it? You're the very peak, the cream of evolution, of the evolutionary process. So what is the result? It is a mind which is able to grasp the infinite. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, Manush ki konga anantyar chinta korte pare. Is a man a small being? He can think of the infinite one. He can conceive of the infinite. He is not an ordinary being, Sri Ramakrishna says. So this capacity your mind has, how much do you stretch it and train it? That is the question. Through sadhana, if it can be done, you will see Vedanta will hit you like anything. It appears to be the most obvious thing in life. And the joy which it gives is simply unexplainable, inexpressible. Because this joy has nothing to do with the senses or with mental moods and all that. It is joy born of awareness. Higher the awareness, greater the joy. So this understanding comes with sadhana as we proceed. Now let's go to the 66th verse. Shravanadibhir uddipta jnanagni paritapitaha jiva sarva malan mukta swarnavat dyotate swayam. The jiva, free from impurities, being well heated in the fire of knowledge, kindled by hearing and so on, shines of himself like gold. See, that's the essential point which Sri Ramakrishna always used to say, freeing the mind from impurities and heating it in the fire of knowledge, he says, which is produced by hearing, Shravan. These are the three standard steps in Vedanta, Shravan, Manan and Nididhyasan. You first hear about the truth repeatedly. So YouTube is a great boon when it comes to this. You can constantly keep hearing the truth. It is important to hear it. Why? Our mind is busy with all sorts of things. So constantly this dose has to fall. No, neti neti, this is not the truth, this is the truth. So hearing properly. Once you hear, that's the first step. Then manan, thinking deeply about it. That will clarify the truth for you and it will remove all doubts. And nididhyasan, the third step, is actually meditating or penetrating into the truth by oneself, conforming the mental mode to reality. That is nididhyasan, Vedantic meditation. So if this hunger for knowledge, this fire of knowledge that they are speaking of, if that is there, all this will naturally happen. We will naturally come to this. So to demonstrate this, let me tell you a story in today's class. This is the story of Satyakam Jabala from the Chandogya Upanishad. The love of knowledge in this child, Satyakam, was so great. He overcame all obstacles and became a great knower of Brahman. So this is a very beautiful story, the story of Satyakam, often quoted. He's a small boy, a young boy who is just thirsty for knowledge. So the thought comes to him, how do I get this knowledge of Brahman? How do I know myself? Who am I? Who will teach me this knowledge? So he goes to his mother and tells her, Mother, I want this knowledge. And the mother knows that the mother's name is Jabala. And she knows that he's a very intelligent boy and he should be well educated. So she asks him to find a guru. Now, Satyakam goes to the sage Gautam. The story is like that. See, there are many legends, you can say many variations of this story, but essentially it is something like this. He goes to the sage Gautam, Rishi Gautam, Gautama, and tells him that I want this knowledge of Brahman, will you teach me? And seeing this small, young, bright boy, the sage is very pleased. He goes with Samit Pani, the wood which was taken for sacrificial fires. So that was a sign of respect for the Guru. He goes with that in hand and says, I would love to stay in your ashram and acquire the knowledge which you have, and I will help you with your yajnas. Will you please teach me? And then the Rishi says, yes, I will teach you, my boy. But first tell me about your Gotra, about your family, parentage and ancestry. Because that was the custom in those days, you see. Now, this child doesn't know much about his parentage. So he goes back to his mother and asks her, Mother, tell me who's my father. I have to tell it to my guru. And the mother is not able to say that. So she just tells him that, see, I worked in a number of houses, in a number of ashrams, and then I begot you at some point of time. And so you just tell your guru that you are Satyakam Jabala. Your name is Satyakam and your mother's name is Jabala. So this child goes back and says the same thing to his guru. At once, the students who were around the Rishi at that time, they start laughing. Oh, he doesn't know the name of his father and all that. But the guru at once thinks, you see, only a real Brahmin, a boy committed to truth, can speak such a self-damaging truth about himself. This boy is totally committed to truth. He doesn't think twice before uttering the truth. And how brave and fearless he is. And his face shows he is just yearning for knowledge. So the guru puts everything aside and takes this boy in and has his Upanayan done and starts teaching him the knowledge of Brahman. So Satyakam was one of the brightest pupils of the ashram. And then the story is very beautiful further on, because how he attained the knowledge of Brahman. When he starts learning at the hermitage of his guru, one day the guru calls him. Now Satyakam has been doing all his duties with complete commitment. Everything that is expected in an ashram, he's so selfless, completely given to his practice and doing everything that is expected of a brahmachari in the ashram. He brings wood, he brings water to his guru's hermitage, he studies ardently, and he is very strict about his spiritual practice. One day the guru calls Satyakam and tells him, my son, I'll give you 400 cows, and they are not very healthy cows. Please take them to the forest and make them healthy and fat and see that they give good yield, and then come back to me when they turn 1,000 in number. Now look at this. This is no easy job for a young boy. So he takes, anyway, it's the guru's order, and now he will carry on all these instructions perfectly. He takes the cows to the forest and he takes them to places where there is green grass. He himself waits upon them. Whichever cow is not able to eat, he provides whatever is possible for him. He makes sure they always have green grass around them and good water to drink. He sleeps somewhere under a tree, maybe near some temple. Somehow ignoring his own comforts, he looks after and tends to the cows so well. And in this way, many months pass by. But Satyakam is unwavering in his service and in following his guru's instruction. Whenever he has time, he dives into meditation. Like this, he spends his time and he lives amidst nature in that forest for many years, it is said. And one fine day, he sees, the story goes that a bull comes to him and tells him that can we go back to our Guru's hermitage? We are now 1,000 in number. And Satyakam looks around and counts his cows, and indeed, after that many years, they were now 1,000, and all of them were healthy and well. So then he starts his way back to his Guru's place. And on the way back, he gets to learn a whole lot of lessons. It is said that while Satyakam lived in the forest, nature itself became his teacher. He learned everything, the greatest lessons of life, in the midst of all those natural surroundings. See, that's why I say my favorite take from this story is, it is important to live in the midst of nature. This is something very magical. For those of you who have done it, you know what I mean. If you just live in the midst of mountains and lakes and peaks and near vast natural bodies, whether water or whether it is hills, it has a very tremendous effect on the mind. It's called nature mysticism itself, actually, because nature has this effect on the mind. Our own system is made up of the 5 basic elements, isn't it? When you see them in their natural vast forms, there's a kind of correspondence. And so you feel alive. You come out live to the depths of your being. Nature automatically does that to you. And so Satyakam learned the greatest lessons of life, the knowledge of Brahman, staying in the forest, staying amidst those trees. It is said that his first teacher was the bull, whom he would tend. There were a number of bulls and cows in the herd, and one bull actually gave him the knowledge of Brahman. That is how it is described. It told him that all these directions which you see, the 4 directions, east, west, north, south, these are all nothing but it is Brahman appearing as these directions, 4 directions. Because any direction is a limitation in space. What pervades that direction? It is Brahman, it is consciousness. So all of this is nothing but Brahman. Then it is said that he would light a fire in the kind of bonfire in the evenings for his meditation, and he would also keep the fire lit when he went to sleep in the forest. So the fire taught him lessons. The fire also taught him the all-pervading nature of Brahman. Then it is said a swan taught him again the nature of Brahman. That light, lightning, brilliance, all this is nothing but the power of Brahman. And then finally, it is said that a kingfisher taught him the nature of Brahman in the human mechanism, which expresses as life energy, the vital energy in our system. So all of these, that is prana, is Brahman. You know, in our Upanishads it is said, pranasya prana is Brahman, which means the life of your life energy is what is called Brahman. So all this knowledge came to him through this a bull, through birds, through fire, through the natural elements. So when he arrived at his Guru's hermitage, finally, the Guru looked at him and said, "My son, your face shines like one who has known Brahman, like a knower of Brahman. You have attained the supreme knowledge. Just seeing you, I get that feeling. So I have nothing more to teach you, my son." So then Satyakam, then he goes and he becomes a great teacher himself. And it is said that he established a huge hermitage, and he was well known as a man of realization, a knower of Brahman. And today, the place called Jabalpur in India, it is supposed to be the place of that Jabala. Stories are like that, but we don't know where exactly this incident took place. Anyway, what we have to take from Satyakam's story is his deep inclination, his deep desire for knowledge. This is a supremely purifying thing because it liberates the mind, just wanting to know. It liberates the mind from all smallness, ignorance, from desires. from running after name, fame. It will naturally liberate the mind from all of this because you want to know the truth. You will not invest your energy in silly things. In our own times, there is one very interesting incident in the life of Albert Einstein, which I can tell you here. When the state of Israel was created, Einstein at that time, he was already a reputed scientist and one who had contributed so much to physics. So because he was a Jew by birth, he was requested to become the president of Israel. And he flatly refused. And they asked him, why not? With your credentials and with your experience, this country will shine. And Einstein said, look, he was actually requested to become the president of Israel. And Einstein said, look, presidentship will come and presidentship will go, but an equation is forever. And so I will not leave my mathematics and my physics. See, the love of knowledge makes the mind like this. Presidentship will come and presidentship will go, but an equation is forever. You understand the real value of things, the worth of things when you are knowledge oriented. That is why knowledge is supremely purifying and liberating. Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate. The Bhagavad Gita says there is nothing more purifying than knowledge. One who understands this firsthand will not pursue anything else seriously other than knowledge. So, Ranganathananji Maharaj, who was the 13th president of Ramakrishna Mathan Mission, he used to say, if you worship Saraswati, Mother Lakshmi will follow naturally. Where there is knowledge, everything comes by itself. So this inclination of the mind towards knowing itself is the great boon of God. This story of Satyakam Jabala is very illustrative of just wanting to know for the sake of knowing. Isn't it like Nachiketa? I just want to know the truth. Not what I will get out of it. What will I get out of it is secondary. I just want to know for the sake of knowing. And I will give anything for that. So, and the spirit of service, the commitment to spiritual discipline, all these made Satyakam a realized rishi, a knower of Brahman. So this is the beautiful story from the Chandogya Upanishad. Now let's go to verse number 67. Hrida kashodito hyatma bodha bhanus tamopahrit sarvavyapi sarvadhari bhati bhasayate akhilam. Atman, which is the sun of knowledge, arises in the firmament of the heart and destroys the darkness. The pervader of all and the sustainer of all, it illumines all and also itself. See, it is the sun of knowledge which arises in the firmament of the heart and destroys all darkness. This is the actual purpose of the Gayatri, to awaken the heart center so that knowledge, the knowledge of Brahman comes in there. Dhi, to awaken that Dhi. So the heart is a very, you can say, mysterious word used in our scriptures. It is not actually mysterious, but you can say it is mystical in the sense it is the key to the knowledge of Brahman. How does it become the key? Because it is important to raise vital energy to the heart to understand spiritual things. That is why the insistence on brahmacharya in scriptures. Vital energy, if raised to the heart center, will reveal a totally different level of awareness through which you understand everything just like that. So the taste of higher awareness lies within us. And it's only a matter of practice. Now, I would like to quote here Raman Maharshi, who once said, the world is in the mind is in the heart, and that is the whole truth. This is the actual fact. The world is in the mind. The mind is in the heart. Now you have to discover that heart, not this physiological heart. You have to discover that capital H heart. And you will find the world and mind in it. And that is the whole truth. So these are all words used to drive us into strong spiritual practice and ultimately realization. Then, the pervader of all and the sustainer of all is the Atman. It illumines all and also itself. Isn't this true? The pervader of everything. Because you are conscious, I'm telling you, anything appears to you as being, as existence. You are able to perceive objects. The existence of the other is based upon the fact of your existence. Now, if I suddenly told you there is land on sale on Mercury and it's for free, would you like to have it? Where is Mercury? And if there is land there for sale for free, what does it matter? If you are not experiencing that thing, anything connected with it will not matter to you. If you are not conscious, basically, the consciousness of anything being there will not matter to you. The fact of your consciousness makes everything conscious for you. So this is the point they are driving at. Many times we are so objective in our approach, we just lose this point. We don't think of it at all. In fact, we know everything about the whole world. We know everything about all those galaxies and stars, the knowable universe. But we don't know who we are. What an irony, you see. We don't know who we are actually. What is the permanent thing about us? What is the truth about the human being? Unchanging fact about him. What remains over after death of the body? We don't know that. But we know everything about everything. So to change this state, all this is being repeatedly told to us. Let's go into the last verse, 68. Digdesha kalad anapeksha sarvagam shitadihran nitya sukham niranjanam yasvatmatirtham bhajate vinishkriyaha sa sarvavid sarvagato amrito bhavet. He who, renouncing all activities, worships in the sacred and stainless shrine of Atman, which is independent of time, place and distance, which is present everywhere, which is the destroyer of heat and cold and other opposites, and which is the giver of eternal happiness, becomes all-knowing and all-pervading and attains hereafter immortality. See, one who worships in the sacred and stainless shrine of the Atman. If you visit all the shrines in the universe, but you never dive within yourself, will you find God? Will we find God outside of ourselves? Tell me. This is what Vedanta will constantly tell you. God lies within you, in your own heart, as the Atman. Ignoring him, you are trying to find that God outside of you, in the external. But God is ever present within you as your consciousness. That is why actual darshan means realizing I am Brahman. Knowing that circumambulation, pradakshina, actually means making the mind go around the self, merging it in the self. Prasad actually means consuming something without the ego sense. That is prasad. Because we are not able to do all this, we objectify even Brahman and call him the deity and do all upachara for him. Upachara means worship. Because we are so objectively oriented, we can only worship him objectively. So this is a concession given to our ignorance, so that we are at some point of time able to penetrate into the truth. There is a beautiful hymn called Para Puja by Shankaracharya. I would like you to go through it. Worship of God as He is, the transcendental reality, supreme truth of existence. To worship Him as He is. Finally, Shankaracharya says, please forgive me, my Lord, that I am worshipping you in all these ways, because I am reducing you to taking an objective stand towards you. So you please forgive me, he says. The actual worship is all internal. God resides in every human being as the soul, as the Atman. In his consciousness, the world shines. So worship of God means turning inward. Worshipping God means diving deep into the source of your own being. According to Vedanta, this is real worship. And he is the giver of eternal happiness, all pervading, and knowing him one gains immortality. He is beyond all opposites. So this verse especially is actually telling us what liberation means. It is entering the stainless shrine of the Atman. You have the famous story of Markandeya. You must have heard of it. See, in order to escape death, okay, the story goes something like this. In just a minute, I can tell you this story. This Brahmin couple were blessed by God. They actually wanted a child, and for a long time they did not have a child. So they prayed to God, Lord Shiva. And Shiva blessed them and told them, see, either you will have a very bright child who will live only 16 years, but brilliant, or you will have a real dud who will live 100 years. Now, which one would you prefer? So the couple naturally said, give us the bright boy, even if he's only for 16 years. So they were blessed with a very beautiful baby boy who grew up to be really, really, really intelligent, a different kind of sattvic intelligence, and a master of the scriptures at a young age, and so brilliant that scholars would come to learn from him. And when this child grew up to 15 years of age, the parents started worrying, and they felt extremely sad that this gem of a child, in another 1 year, he will no longer be with us. And then the story goes that in his 16th year, when Lord Yama, the king of death, approached this child, the story says that the child ran and went and embraced the Shivling. And Lord Shiva came out of that Shivling with his trident, and Yama could no longer approach and touch the child. So thus Markandeya, that was the name of the child, thus he was saved. And he lived for a long time. So the spiritual interpretation of this story is, he so dived into self-knowledge, because Shiva, the Linga, stands for the Supreme Self. The child had embraced the self-knowledge. So he overcame mortality. Mortality means the fall of the body. So the body may fall, but if your mind has transcended the body and touched the self, you are immortal forever. So that is the story of Markandeya. He became immortal by his knowledge of the Supreme Self. And that is why the Ashirvad given is that may you live 100 years, may you be like Markandeya, may you overcome the mortality of human life, the limitations of human life. In Kashi Khand, there is a very beautiful, huge book on Kashi. You know, the common legend is, anybody who dies in Kashi is liberated. Even Sri Ramakrishna actually saw this. In the Kashi Khand, which is a book based on Kashi, the mystery of Kashi, there's a nice shloka which I came across and which struck me. There it is, the Kashi is described as the heart, and Vishwanath, the Lord of Kashi, Lord Shiva, is described as the Atman. So one who will touch this Vishwanath in the heart center, he is liberated in Kashi. So now to understand this, we really need sadhana. What is the heart center? Who is the Vishwanath there? How touching him brings us liberation. And then we will know what Mukti in Kashi is about. This physical form verily is Kashi. And Vishwanath is sitting right here. If you touch him, you are liberated. But no, we are identified only with the external. So this to point out to this, a whole lot of scriptures are coming around to this again and again. Essentially, it is transformation of mind, transcendence of the normal mind, and penetration into consciousness. Sri Ramakrishna used to give this funny story, isn't it, about bathing in the Ganges. There is the common belief that if you bathe in the Ganges, all your sins go away. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, a person went to bathe in the Ganges, and when he took a dip, his sins remained, they just shifted to the tree nearby. And after his bath, when he came out, the sins again descended upon him. So the sins were not removed or dissolved. They come back, which means to say, the essential thing is purification and transformation of your mind. That has to happen. And let me quote one as a final thing. The best way to conclude this text is to go into the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. What he says, what Sri Ramakrishna says about this self-knowledge, which we have been discussing so far. And the Atmabodha is a text to actually teach us the knowledge of the Atman, to give us the complete knowledge, a complete picture of Jivan, the state of Jivan Mukti, liberation right here, while in the body. Liberation means knowing the truth, realizing the truth of Brahman right here. So what does Sri Ramakrishna say about this? He says, what is the meaning of Jnana Yoga? It is the path by which a man can realize the true nature of his own self. It is the awareness that Brahman alone is his true nature. Prahlad sometimes was aware of his identity with Brahman, and sometimes he would see that God was one and he another. At such times, he would remain in the mood of bhakti. See, all of them were established in Brahman. Prahlad is recognized as a great bhakta, but bhakti itself rests in this knowledge. Then Sri Ramakrishna says, Hanuman said, O Ram, sometimes I find that you are the whole and I am a part. Sometimes that you are the master and I am your servant. But O Ram, when I have the knowledge of reality, I see that you are I and I am you. This is a magnificent verse. Deha buddhya tu dasosmi, jiva buddhya tadamshakaha, atma buddhya tvamevaham, iti me nishchitamati. Hanuman's answer to Sri Ram, how do you look upon me? Sri Ram asks. Hanuman says, when I look upon myself only as body, I am your servant eternally. When I look upon myself as the jiva, then I am eternally a part of you. But when I know I am the Atman, then I am verily you. You are verily whom you are worshipping. You are pure consciousness. You are Brahman. Bring this into your everyday experience through sadhana. If the mind is clear enough, you just know it just like that. So this is the sum and substance of Atmabodha. Let's go to the questions quickly. If God is beyond name and form, who created so many names and forms of Ishvara like Krishna, Vishnu, etc.? When was this created and why so many? Is there any proof that they exist like that? See, when you and I can have a name, why can't Ishvara have a name? These forms and names are realities in the cosmic mind. Vivekananda used to say, Ishvara is the greatest, highest reading of the infinite through the human intellect, by the human intellect. So don't disbelieve the forms and names of God. The name of God has potent power. It will take you to reality itself. Believe in it, because that is the only way we can proceed. As long as we are identified with a name and a form, you can only worship God with name and with form. Try as you may. It is only when you remove your identifications, you can understand the real nature of God. So God knowledge is on par with self-knowledge. So don't ask the question, are they real? They are absolutely real. In fact, if you keep chanting the name of God, it will take you to the reality of God. So don't disbelieve them. If all of us are Brahman and we can control our mind, why don't we have the same control over our physical health and lifespan, etc.? So yogis do have control over their physical health, but they prefer not to invest all their powers and energies in maintaining mere physical health. They sort of, you can say, ignore physical health. And lifespan, well, who would want to live forever? It would be a great tragedy if we lived forever and ever. This 100 years of mind, so difficult to manage. Isn't it? Look at the depression and mental health problems around us. It is important to renew our mind and life energies periodically. That is why the process of death is there. Death is of the body, not of you. So take it like that. In the human experience, there is going to be only life. Death is of the body. You never wear the body. You got identified with it by mistake. Just like how you may be very identified with the dress you like. But awareness, which may or may not get identified with the body and mind. So that is why not we control our lifespan. In a sane state of mind, you will never want to control your lifespan. Accept the way things are, just the way they are, and find your way to the supreme goal. That's all. Our core divinity being the same, why are we so different mentally, physically, and emotionally? Because minds and bodies are different, isn't it? The Atman is the only common thing. Everything else about us is different. And that is why our sanskars are different, emotions are different, thoughts are different. Body, of course, bodies are different. That's why our experiences are different. So why are they different? Well, we asked for it. We wanted to be born as individuals, jivas. And that's why we are born. It's due to our desire. If everything happens because of God's will, how do we look at self-effort? Could you please explain the relationship between self-effort and God's will? See, I will just very briefly answer this. Ours is to put the right effort. The fruit of that action comes by God's will. So, God, whether the action produce the fruit we wanted should not be so much our concern. Just go on putting in the right effort. The fruit is given by God. This is usually the bhakta standpoint, that he is the giver of the fruit of action. He will decide what to give, what not to give. Many times we don't have healthy prayer. We don't know what to ask for. We may ask for the wrong things. So let him take care of that department. You just put in the right effort. Do the right actions. That's all, and leave it. There is one huge discussion on determinism and free will on YouTube, which was given in IIT. So if you want, you can go through that once. Should we avoid the company of evil people or continue to be with them unaffected, knowing that they are also divine? See, in the period of your sadhana, you must avoid evil people, because otherwise they can influence you. It is not easy to remain unaffected. But after we have really grown a little, then you can accept just anyone, seeing the divinity in them. Like the way Sri Ramakrishna accepted Girish, but he warned all the youngsters under him to keep away from such characters. So it all depends on how much strength of what level of strength of mind we have gained. Then only we can accept everybody as they are. Can you please explain the 4 yugas? Is there prophecies? Are the prophecies about them true? And are they predefined? If they are predefined, where exists the future based on karma phal? See, the prophecies regarding the 4 yugas, Satya Yuga and till Kali Yuga, all these, Treta, Dwapar. So these are all based on understanding the collective unconscious of humanity. Now, it is not given to everyone to penetrate to that level. So don't believe so much in these prophecies. But please believe not so much in yugas, but in yoga, the yogas, which means consciously how can I usher in sattvic states of mind, which will be naturally your Satya Yuga. If consciously in your own mind, you can elevate yourself, bring in regulated thoughts, high elevating emotions, you will live in a great yuga, because experience is based on mind. Isn't it? We live with our mind. We live in our mind. So, through yoga, elevate the level of your mind, purify the mind, become more conscious from within. And you will see you live in a great yoga. But the prophecies, now if you suddenly believe I live in the Kali Yuga, then naturally in your mind, the idea will be only that of negativity here. That is why believe more in yoga, how to transform this mind. That is the essential point. I think we will end the class here. Time is up with a prayer. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santu Niramayaha Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukha Bhaga Bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Please keep healthy and keep well. Jai Ma. Shri Sharda Charanamastu. I offer these classes at the feet of Ma Sharda. Thank you very much.